In today's lesson, we're going to be looking at multiplying polynomials and dividing polynomials. We're just going to be looking at multiplying each a polynomial and a monomial by a constant. So let's just start off here by going by what is multiplication. We learned a long time ago that multiplication is very similar, or it can be used to describe area of a rectangle. So we're going to try and help us discover how to divide or how to multiply polynomials with the idea of area. So area is equal to base times height, right? So we know area is equal to base times height, or length times width. So if I had a shape like this, just a regular rectangle, making my rectangle here, and we said that this rectangle is 4 centimeters by 6 centimeters, right? So we here have a height and we have a base. Well, that's going to be the same thing as equal to 4 centimeters multiplied by 6 centimeters, which is equal to 24 centimeters squared, okay? But now what happens if we don't know the full length here? If we're putting some x's, if it's like x plus 3 or something like that. So it's an unknown value plus 3, okay? So let's take a look at another one. So I'm going to look at another little rectangle here, okay? And we're going to say here, so here's my rectangle, and I'm going to make it, we're going to look at my area, and we're going to say this side here is going to be x minus 3, and this side here is going to be 2. Okay, so this is 2 centimeters, and this is x minus 3. Well, we looked at that before, and we said, well, area is equal to base times height. Okay, now I look at this, we have a base, x minus 3, and we have a height of 2. Okay, now if we remember from before, we must use something called the distributive property. So this 2 must be multiplied by both terms in my polynomial. So I have to go x times 2 and negative 3 times 2. So x times 2 is going to give me 2x. Negative 3 times 2 is going to give me negative 6. All right? So we end up using the distributive property there. So I'm going to look at a couple more examples here, and we're going to use Algebra Tiles to help us explore this. So right here, let's think of this. These are my dimensions. This is my base. This is my height. So let's say I was given an equation of, we're going to say we have a base of 2 and a height of 2x minus 2. So I'm going to have 2 multiplied by 2x, 1, 2, and we want to subtract 2, 1. And we're going to flip this over for a negative, 1, 2. We're going to say colors are positive and whites are negative. So let's fill this out here. So I know this height is just a 1. And then we have a whole length here. My base is an x length base. So I'm going to put like this, a positive times a positive is a positive. Now we have the same thing again. We have this height and this base to fill this out. So it's going to look like that. Now we're going to do this one more time, this height with this base. Okay? And then again, we're going to go this height, so that matches, and this base, that matches. Now I look at it, we have negatives times positive. So I look at that here, it's going to give me a negative. We have this base and we have that height. So we're putting in these little guys again here. So once again, we have this base and that height. And we have one more here with this height and that base. Okay? So now when I look at this, inside here is my area. So I looked at this. I ended up having 2 multiplied by 2x minus 2 is equal to, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 x's minus 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's equal to 4x minus 4. So this is kind of like my multiplication thing here, and we're making areas, because anytime I multiply two things together, that's like finding the area of a rectangle. Let's look at one more here for an example. Okay, let's try 3 multiplied by x plus 2. So we're going to look at 3, 1, 2, and then here we're going to have 3. And we're going to multiply that by x plus 2. X plus 2. 1, 2. Okay? So let's take a look at this here. I have a height of that 1, and then I have a base of x. So that's going to give me an x. Once again, I have a height of 1 and a base of x, and a positive times a positive is a positive. I look at it again, I have a height of 1 and a base of x. Okay? So now let's look at these ones. We have a height of 1 and a base of 1. A height of 1 and a base of 1. Once again, we have a height of 1 and a base of 1. And again here, height of 1, base of 1. And we're going to continue filling these out. Now if we look at this, every time we multiply two things together, two numbers or two polynomials together, or two terms together, we should get a rectangle. Multiplying two things together, we get a rectangle. We multiplied here two polynomials together, and we ended up getting a rectangle in the middle. So we know my answer should be more or less right. Now we look at this again. We have 3 multiplied by x plus 2 is equal to 3x plus 6. Let's look at this again. We're going 3 multiplied by the x to give me 3 x's, and the 3 must also be multiplied by the 2 to get 6. Okay? So once again, we're showing that the distributive property actually really works here. We're going to have one last example. Here's my last example. It says negative 2 multiplied by 3 minus x. So negative 2, I'm going to put it this time on top because it doesn't matter. I could switch this whichever way I want. Base and height could be switched. So I'm going to have negative 2 multiplied by 3 minus x. So I'm going to put 3 here. 3 reds. And we have a negative x. Okay? So let's look at this here. We have a negative and a positive multiplied together, which is going to give me a negative. We match our base and our heights together for each of these to make our rectangle. Okay, so we're almost done with the ones here. So the ones are done. Okay, now we have to do the same thing with this one here. But a negative times a negative is a positive. So this matches. We have my height and my base. And we put another one here, height and base. Okay? Now let's look at this, what we get. So I did negative 2 times positive 3 gives me negative 6. Okay? And I also have to do now, multiply this negative 2 by my x. So negative 2 multiplied by negative x gives me negative 2x. So my answer is negative 2x plus 6, or 6 minus 2x.